All right, we're going to get started. We've got a couple topics today we want to go through. We're excited about it. And we got one we're going to kick things off with here, which is the news on Family Dollar that they're closing 1,000 locations. So we've been investing for the past couple years here in dollar stores. So we thought that would be a good topic to kick off and go through kind of what we're seeing and what opportunity it really provides. Or if it provides an opportunity.
Yeah, well, we've had a lot of people ask us about the recent news. So I've had 3 or 4 people just text me the day it happened and what's happening, and a little bit of concern, but for us, the way we buy property, it doesn't affect us. But let's kind of go over just
So I guess the news, right? So
the news is shocking. Yeah.
The news they came out with was that Family Dollar, which is Family Dollar and Dollar Tree, they're going to close 1,000 locations.
Right, but let's put it in context too. Like Family Dollar and Dollar Tree merged in 2015. And in 2015, they had about 13,000 stores. So, and then how many stores do you think they have now?
Yeah, so they opened 3,000.
Right, so they went from 13,000 to 16,000, and they're closing 1,000. So they went net 8,000 stores, additional stores in
net 3,000.
Net 3,000. What did I say? Did I say
8? Okay. 3.
I'm doing math differently. It's called
what kind of different math? Is this the
different math?
This is newer math?
This is new math.
No, they went from 13, they added 3,000, right?
And then they had 8,000 more stores, right?
Magic.
All right, but anyway, so 3,000 net new stores in 8 years. But
Josh is like, he can't take it. It's like, gosh, these guys are terrible at math.
I'm taking my toes out.
You got your calculator over there?
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
So 16,000 stores, and now they said they're going to close 1,000, but really, they're saying they're closing 600 right now, and they've got another 380 that they're going to let their leases expire on. Meaning when that lease comes up, if it's 1 year, 2 year, 4 years, they've assessed that location and said, okay, we're not going to renew that location.
Yeah, but don't forget, they're not just going randomly and they're putting their finger on a piece of paper and saying, okay, I'm going to close that one. I mean, they're doing this logically, and they're taking their bottom performing stores, the stores that don't do well in certain markets, and they're just closing them because they don't make sense to keep open anymore. And so, when we buy these dollar stores, we're protected against that because, like, for example, our Family Dollar in Decatur. Our Family Dollar in Decatur just kicks butt. I think we have a graphic to show.
Yeah, well, we look at foot traffic, and we've talked about this before and how we assess deals. You cannot get perfect transparency into the financials of each store or compare them across all the stores. It doesn't work like that. Or at least we can't unless there's some secret method out there. So we look at foot traffic, which we can see the majority of the stores. And stores we're looking at buying, we want to see stuff that's in the top third of foot traffic when you compare it to all the other stores. Now, foot traffic isn't a direct indicator of sales, but we think it's probably pretty closely correlated to what the sales are going to be. So as long as we're in the top third, we feel pretty good about that position. Obviously, there's risk in anytime you're buying any one of these net lease deals. They're not just bonds that are, corporate entry with no risk. There's certainly risk there.
Yeah. And sometimes the store managers actually like to brag about their sales too. And so, we know our Family Dollar is probably going to be north of 2 million right now. The average unit volume of a Family Dollar right now is about 1.9. So we're doing okay. And some interesting little data, but this one, our Family Dollar is in like the 80th percentile of stores in Georgia. So I think we're going to be fine. We're nowhere near a bottom tier store. And our store did so well that Family Dollar one day decided, hey, this one's doing so well, let's open up a store down the street. And when they opened up the store down the street, you know what happened?
Well, how far away is that store?
I don't know. I think it's a couple miles down the street.
Because, most of these dollar stores are looking at how do we add density every couple miles.
Yeah.
We were just doing the math before this started. There's basically $1 store for every 10,000 people in the U.S.
If you're back out in New York, L.A., San Diego, San Francisco.
The places that are killing the ratio?
Yeah, it's probably more like 1 per 1,000.
These are some of the places you're considering moving to.
Okay,
right?
Top of the list.
Top of the list. California's number one right now?
Nice suburban neighborhoods.
Okay. Like L.A.
Exactly.
Okay, good.
But yeah, those...
For my acting career.
Your acting career. Yeah. Okay.
But density is pretty high. Dollar General, just go to the Dollar General website. They're not the one closing stores, but the other side, you look at the Dollar General website, it's just got a dot for every store, and it's basically coloring in all of the map of the U.S., so everyone's within 10 minutes of a Dollar General.
But you know how the one down the street from our or our Family Dollar performs?
Yeah.
Like ours is in 70th percentile. Uh-oh.
Dropping stuff.
You're going to lose your Coke. You know, ours is in the 80th percentile in the state of Georgia. The other one down the street is in the 16th percentile in the state of Georgia. So that store arguably is at risk right now. And it's just right down the street from ours because of whatever reason, ours does better. And ours, of course, ours is on a major intersection. It's, you know, probably has more foot traffic, more or dense residential.
Yeah. Well, our number, when you look at that 80 and 16, that is judging foot traffic.
Yeah.
So we're saying, you know, when we're looking at a deal, we want to make sure we're buying one of these higher foot traffic deals. That's just that's how we do our underwriting. That's what we're looking at. And I think we don't have any news that any one of ours would be closing, but we assume that they wouldn't be. We haven't heard anything differently. I assume the ones that they are closing or they're going to let their leases expire. It probably also gives them a little bit of financial wiggle room if any one of these groups comes to you and says, "Hey, we're going to let our lease expire. We're just going to walk away." You're like, what can I get you to do to stay? So there could be that tactic in there as well as they look at how do they right size these things. But the store rents are not normally like a huge part of their operating costs. It's significant, but not the driver. Even in the announcement, they pushed more on staffing and crime and theft as kind of issues as to why they were closing specific locations.
That's self-checkout. Self-checkout's always fun to talk about. Is a self-checkout more effective or is it less effective to actually save money? And, you know, but there's a trend in the marketplace right now, too. I mean, retail is just going through a transformation right now because there's another Macy's. Macy's is closing 150 stores.
Yeah, but I went to airport recently. It was one of those Amazon self-checkout stores. You just walk in, take what you want, and walk out. Magic happened.
You just walk in,
right? You don't even have to look at any prices. You don't even know what you're going to pay. Okay. But it worked. It'll be there.
Have you been in a Uniqlo store yet?
Oh, what?
It's a Japanese clothing brand, but they're in all the major cities.
I thought you said unicorn store.
Uniqlo. And so you walk around with a bag or a cart, whatever. You fill it up with all the stuff you want. It's kind of like a nicer version of Old Navy. And at the end, you literally just drop your bag in a bin, and it adds up instantaneously on self-checkout. You don't have to scan anything. You have to pull it out of the bag, nothing. You're already like ready to walk out the door.
Yeah, so each piece of
everything has RFID.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Everything.
Yeah.
That sounds expensive.
But why is it not? Is it in Atlanta? Or does Atlanta not count?
Atlanta doesn't have one.
Atlanta doesn't count as a big city?
No, the Chicago.
I think you got to go back on your statement that it's only big cities.
I thought we're an awesome big city.
We are. Just right under the radar.
Okay.
All right. How about that? Well, interesting. So dollar stores, they are closing them. I mean, they announced they are closing them. We don't see an immediate impact to us, but we do look at that and say, okay, why is it happening? What is the opportunity for us? The only thing that we're looking at is if that's going to maybe drive up cap rates for a specific brand. We saw this happening. I mean, this happened originally with Applebee's. Roll back like 6 years when Applebee's went through their bankruptcy and their cap rates went up on their units. And then as they came out of it, their cap rates went back down on their stores. If that happens or we see a rise in cap rates related to some of these deals, maybe an opportunity to pick some of them up, especially if they're top performing locations at a higher cap rate than they've been trading at before. So maybe this news can push things in that direction, but that's really how we would be looking to see an opportunity within this.
And we're always buying stuff based on how long we think the business is going to be there, and is there anything imminent that's going to shut that business down? Because we want to buy a business that is going to be there for a indefinite amount of time because they're actually doing well. And usually they're doing well because of one of the fundamentals of this is where, location. They're in the right place, they have the right traffic, and it just works.
Yeah.
And sometimes it just works in spite of the business versus because of the business.
And this could also be the end of kind of the land grab with the dollar stores, right? It's like over the last, 10 years, these 30,000 stores between Dollar General, Family Dollar, and Dollar Tree, with the consolidation between Family Dollar and Dollar Tree to fight the Dollar General expansion, we could actually see cap rates compress because there's less coming online. So it'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, cool. Okay, let's go on to the next subject here. Josh, you want to kick us off here? You like this conversation.
I do like Jensen. So Jensen, the CEO of NVIDIA, had a speech to the recent Stanford grads or upcoming Stanford grads.
The economic policy meeting kind of thing at Stanford.
Yeah, and his point was about resiliency. It was a fairly, it was a well-meant point, but the way he delivered it was, I think his quote was, he was wishing upon them pain and suffering to experience resilience in life and to recover from the pain and suffering so you can be a better human being, a better employee, better at life in general. So it came across pretty harsh. It was a pretty viral video. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I probably watched it 6 or 7 times and shared it with everyone I knew because of just the how meaningful and how deep he kind of went with the point that he was trying to make and how impactful pain and suffering is on people's lives and how it defines them.
It's true. You've got to go through challenges to learn things in life, right? You've got to experience ups and downs. Anyone that's going to run a operating business or do something, like, there's going to be challenges. There's going to be a lot of downs, and that's when it's really when you can do the best.
Yeah,
you can do the best work.
You know what I'm hearing right now is that you shared this video with a bunch of other people, but you didn't share it with me. So I'm kind of
Andrew, you caused him enough pain and suffering that he didn't need to share it with you.
Pain and suffering right now because I'm not on your list of people you shared that video with. So I don't know how to feel about that. But
he doesn't look at our group chat, apparently.
Yeah, it was in the group chat.
Oops. So you're saying I didn't pay attention is what you're saying.
That was the first place I shared it.
Okay, well, okay.
So let's talk about how does this apply to us? How does it apply to the business? How does it apply to you, maybe your children, maybe your employees? Part of in our business, what we're always looking for is really an opportunity to kind of buy out of someone else's pain and suffering to help them recover from whatever has happened. So, we most of our properties that we've bought over the years have been a result of some kind of life event, whether it's someone got sick, someone passed away, et cetera, and the family just needs to liquidate this property. So it has created opportunity for us to grow a business. We've also have experienced pain and suffering in the business as we've grown. I mean, Dave, you remember the days when we were hiring? I felt like we were hiring 20 people a month.
Yeah, we went all sorts of growing pains, but there's also we're looking to tackle problems. We're looking to go find challenging situations that are going to be hard to operate through. They're going to be hard to figure out what to do. We're going to come up with some kind of plan. It's not always going to work. A lot of the times it's going to suck in the middle of it as we get through it. And you kind of get to this end point of stability in our property. And you're like, oh my gosh, we've gotten there. We finally turned all the units, or we finally finished the CapEx work, and nothing goes as smoothly as you want it to. And there's always, you're like, wait, how much did that learning lesson cost? And you're like, ooh, they all seem to be expensive. Right? There's none of them that are cheap. That's for sure.
Remember the best example we have here over the last few years is during COVID, we had our Edgewood property, which was...
Oh, there's some pain and suffering in that
There was
property.
a lot of pain and suffering there. Yeah. So our tenant was not necessarily the best tenant in the world. During COVID, he just basically said he couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah, so he wasn't resilient.
He wasn't
right.
Resilient.
Like challenges came up. COVID was a challenge for everyone.
And he was not necessarily cooperative with us. He could have just as easily said, "Here's the keys. Do what you can with it. I can't do it anymore." But he didn't even do that. So he actually let literally the homeless population around the property take it over. And we had it was horrible. We had I think a $90,000 cleanup on that property.
Yeah, but you can look at that. I think that whole time frame in history, there's obviously lots of information coming out of that, but especially from the point of resilient leaders during one of the most challenging business environments probably seen in a long time. I don't know how to say how challenging is that compared to some other situations. But if you weren't scared during COVID and running a business, you were probably not telling the truth.
But look what Greenleaf did during that time. I mean, Greenleaf actually took that whole property. We got it renovated. We got it all cleaned up. We rented it for more than we were renting it for before. And we actually sold it for a nice profit too. And, our company, we did that. We actually took something a horrible experience that it was a lot of discussion, a lot of pain, a lot of expense that we didn't plan. Yeah. But we actually, we did it. We made it work.
Yeah, I think when you think about resiliency, it's really that kind of that knowing that you're going to get through something, not necessarily knowing how you're going to get through it, but knowing you're going to get through it just because you've proven in the past that there have been other challenges and other hurdles and other things that sucked that you got through as well. And as a team, look, we've gotten through a bunch of other things that sucked before. We're going to do it again here. I don't know how we're going to do it. We don't need to have like the exact plan, but we're going to get through this one as well, and we're going to figure it out. And it's going to be a lot better on the other side because of it, and we're going to learn from it. And overall, we're going to be better off because of it.
Yeah, and you only lose. I mean, this is silly to say this. I don't know if it's silly, but you only lose when you quit.
Yeah, no.
I mean, that's it.
Just
You
don't quit, and you're not out of the game.
Yeah,
So,
as long as you're playing the game, you're still there.
Dave, you have a favorite Greenleaf memory or thought or moment?
favorite Greenleaf moment?
I one that
think
just clearly comes to my head.
No, I think all kind of favorite moments always go back to like your earliest point. You
Yep.
think about your life and you're like, hey, what's a favorite memory? It's never like, hey, yesterday was fantastic when this happened. It's always something like, wow, way back in the past where you did something that was super challenging a long time ago. But even also on Edgewood Avenue, right? When we were sanding the concrete floors at Edgewood Avenue in a 10-unit building, and all the guys we were trying to pay to help us would quit in like an hour. And they're like, we're not doing this garbage. This is the worst work ever imaginable. And then we did it all. And I was like, well,
we got it done.
yeah. I'm like, we should probably wear a mask. Right? That was one of those situations. There was not the whole like mask debate. This was like, you should wear a mask.
Yeah.
This stuff cannot be good.
It's gonna kill
to
you.
inhale this. It'll definitely kill you. Wear a mask. So
I remember
that was super fun.
we bought that 4-unit building on Dresden next to an 8-unit building that we were in. We were so excited. We bought this 4-unit deal for $50,000. It's I guess it was fully occupied with no running water, no electricity.
Yeah, but see, you're telling a story that's going way back in the past.
Yeah,
Those
yeah,
are all
of
the
course.
best ones. The older the story gets, the better and the bigger it is.
Even if it's not true anymore, right?
Exactly. It definitely gets embellished. But we bought it so cheap, we didn't really plan for capital improvements, all that. We just figured we'll just fix it ourselves. And I never forget when we went down to the basement to start working on the plumbing pipes. It was like, I think we went down there like 6-ish in the evening. We had all of our tools. We were ready to go. And we thought we were just going to basically cut the pipe out, put a new pipe in. We didn't have any of the right tools. We used a Sawzall to cut cast iron, which doesn't really work. I think we were cutting that iron pipe for 3 hours. It finally dropped, and the amount of poop in this pipe, it was just
I think at that point,
solid.
it kind of had turned into like compost.
Yeah.
It had been made for so long. It's like, oh, this is like compost. That's
Again,
in here
should have
now.
worn a mask. Oh man, that was a hell of a memory.
Oh gosh, yeah. All right, so that's
Jensen.
the Jensen. Yeah, that's the Jensen
video.
thing. If you haven't seen it, you should definitely watch it. It's a great discussion. He's done obviously phenomenally well with NVIDIA. I think the third largest company by market cap now.
I think in the next month they'll be the largest.
They just they're on a tear. But yeah, should have held on to your stock. But anyways. Well, let's go on to the next one here too. We've got Fulton County and some eviction updates. This is something we really started tracking. Not that we weren't tracking it, but really looking at payment history and trends during COVID. To go back to that time frame, and really ever since then, a lot of the cities and municipalities have been really overwhelmed with the eviction process as those moratoriums wore off. You had this giant backlog of filings kind of coming into the court system. And then also on top of that, piggybacking that was the sheriff's department who basically enforces the evictions or the writ part of the process. They just experienced an overwhelming backlog as well. So eviction moratorium lifted. Anyone who files an eviction, it's now taking months, if not years, to get through that process. Whereas prior to 2020, it took maybe 6 to 8 weeks. It wasn't anything that was, it was lengthy at that time. It felt lengthy when you're not getting paid for rent, but once that it balloons to 1 or 2 years, obviously that's a hugely long process. We have we have about a dozen, maybe 18 people right now in our Fulton County system that have been, I would say, more professional non-payments for about 2 years, where it's been exceptionally challenging to get those evictions through or find a payment method. So that's certainly been a challenge for us on the operating side. But what Fulton County did recently, and it just came out, so we'll see how it goes, but they basically said if you have an eviction that's been filed and you have a ledger for a tenant where they have a balance, that they have to remit payment to the court not exactly sure where in the court or how that works or if they're going to the court, but they have to remit payment to the court within 14 days. And if they do not pay their balance in full to the court or an amount that the court deems as appropriate, there's some other wording there about how that could work out. But in any event, they've got to pay the court in 14 days. If they do not pay the court in 14 days, it automatically sends the eviction through to the sheriff department and issues the writ. And the writ of possession is basically what you then do to go schedule an eviction with the sheriff department and have them come out and they kind of bring the situation to a head. They remove the tenant, the non-paying tenant at that time, and they also remove all their stuff. The sheriff's department is backed up as well in this process. Right now, it's about 3 to 4 months to get that process through. And kind of think, why does it take so long? We have an eviction this week that we're fulfilling, and it's going to require 3 people from our team to be there and 8 people from the sheriff and the moving group that are going to be there as well. So you got a lot of coordination. Sheriff's department has a ton of coordination to get one of these things done and to move and then actually get people out and be prepared for whatever that may entail. So there's lots of challenges with it, but we're going to see how this goes. We've submitted some through this new process, and it's going to kick things over to the sheriff's office relatively quickly. And then from there, we'll work on the scheduling and see how it goes. So optimistic that this change helps speed things up a little bit, but it literally came out like last week. So we're new to see how this whole process works with that.
Yeah, so basically someone stops paying their rent on the 5th. The rent's due by the 5th. On the 10th, we file eviction.
Yep.
Goes to the court, and the courts lately have been taking 3, 4, 5, 6 months to basically process to hear it.
Yeah.
And if things go in the landlord's favor, meaning that the tenant's not paying, that we need to evict that tenant, that writ then goes over to the sheriff to basically say, Sheriff, you need to set this person out.
Yeah, and then the sheriff takes...
And now that takes another 3 to 4 months to get the sheriff over there to physically... The sheriff goes in and removes all their stuff, puts it on the street, literally on the street. It's a pretty rough process for a family to go through. And then we basically get possession back of our unit. So what we're talking about here is shortening the court process from 3, 4, 5, 6 months to 14 days. But the sheriff's department is still way behind. It's a step in the right direction, but it's still a backlog.
Yeah, and I think this is very new, so we're trying to see exactly how it works. But I think even once they pay their balance of that 14 days, they have to keep making payments into the court. They cannot be paying the landlord. It's all going to the court from there out, and then to kind of get through the eviction process and the court dates with that. So the court's going to be holding all this money, and then see how that settles out. We're not exactly sure what that means if you cancel the eviction and the tenant is fully paid up. It's like, how does that process work? There could be some challenges there as the courts kind of administer how that happens. Neither one of these agencies or divisions or what do you want to call them necessarily? Like, I don't necessarily think the sheriff's department or the court office is getting more funding and more manpower to administer anything beyond what they're already seem like they have a lot of work to be doing. So I think any kind of new policy is always a challenge. It takes time because you've got the people already doing one job, having to learn another job to do it as well. So you probably got some challenges there.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if this gets adopted by, this is for Fulton County, Atlanta, which is, I believe, the most populous county in Georgia. This is where the city of Atlanta is. To see if it gets adopted by DeKalb County, which is probably, I think, the second most populous. We have properties in Gwinnett County and Hall County. We have properties in Chattanooga. So we're not seeing as much of a backlog. It's not as slow. Fulton is by far the worst. So it's good to see that improving. But yeah, it's still a process.
We always look at those ratios. Like, it'd be interesting to know, like, how much do they process for how many people do they have? You kind of look at these things in municipalities that either don't go as smooth as we want them to do or wish you could go faster. But it's like, how much actually throughput are they putting through in these systems? And most of the time, it's like overwhelming how much they actually have to get through.
It's impressive.
Yeah. But we're going to see how this goes. We'll definitely have more updates on this. It's going to be, it's one of the biggest changes in eviction news or that kind of like right of possession.
Since the CDC took it over and stopped.
Yeah, since CDC said, put the eviction moratorium in place.
Yeah.
That's all now gone for most everywhere we operate, at least. And this is the next new thing out of it. So be interesting. Okay. One other topic, we've talked about this stuff for a while and kind of the trends in apartments and what we're seeing. When we go back to our last end of quarter, the fourth quarter of 2023, we had seen strong occupancy in the upper 90%. We were still seeing revenue gains here in Atlanta. We noted some national trends that were more towards 0% revenue growth. And we were saying, okay, we're as a city and in the markets that we're in are outperforming that. And then Josh, our resident Texan, always keeping up on the Texas news.
Times.
So yeah, the Texas Times. You're going to be a journalist from Texas.
There we go.
Going through this stuff, but just interesting news when we look at Texas and specifically Austin
Texas
market.
has been leading the nation in growth, specifically Austin, with population growth, development growth, et cetera, et cetera. And I went to school in Austin, big fan of Austin, great town. But it's almost been too much of, the headlines of everyone moving there and everyone developing there and everyone buying a house there, and the growth of rental rates going from, average rental rates in Austin, what was that, 3 years ago, was barely 1,300, and now they're...
It was like 2 years ago.
Yeah, 2 years ago it was barely 1,300, now they're 1,750 for an apartment unit, which is substantially higher than Atlanta. Austin, so what's gone on now is that, everyone knows that the multifamily market has slowed. Occupancy is starting to trend either flat to marginally downward. So Austin occupancy has been reported to be about 87%, which is the threshold for most operating apartment complexes is 90%. That's where lending is make or break. If your occupancy is above 90, Fannie and Freddie will lend to you. If you're below 90, they will not lend to you. So 90% is really a key marker. So Austin is at 87%. And they're seeing 6% year-over-year rent declines. So with 25,000 additional units coming on this year. So I think Austin, this news kind of bled over to San Antonio as well. Is really just in a position to kind of just hold on tight for a little bit to let population catch up to its oversupply.
Yeah. And then we talk about the residential side of things. You've got a couple pieces that are happening there, right? You've got revenue decline. You've got potentially occupancy or vacancy going up, occupancy going down. That's the same thing right there, right? And then you've got the impact that lending and interest rates has on that. So you kind of got three storms kind of brewing around there at the same time, right? Which turns into like an Excel little balance beam of where are things going to fall in your model and how is it all going to play out. So there's definitely some challenges with what that's going to look like here in the near term. We look at our metrics. We could get into one of those scenarios. We're at a point where it's basically 70% occupancy is where our cash flow break-even numbers are at in our operations, or if we go as low as 40% retention. So those two things can happen outside of the market demographic. So those are really the levers that are going on in the multifamily space that we're seeing right now. And Texas and that example in Austin is kind of it's been so hot for so long. And then now this information that's coming out really in the first quarter of 24, throw some water on that one, right? It's a little bit now what's going to happen.
Yeah, with 28,000 units, coming online, that's going to with all these trends kind of going the opposite direction. The challenge is going to be it's just the lease up times and these developers really surviving over the next 18, 24 months as their lease ups are slower, their concessions are higher. The article was also talking about that 60% of Class A units are offering substantial concessions, which normally means at least a month of free rent. So it could be some serious time to get over the hump.
Yeah, most of the time, the new development deals are either they're for the most part they're a construction loan, right? So they've got to get to their endpoint so they can be refinanced. We've already touched base on the impact of rising rates, making that refinance more challenging. Now you've got some other factors that are going to make that even harder as well to execute a business plan in that thing. But go back to Jensen's comment, it's going to make everyone stronger. It always does, and it's going to be some challenges, but yeah.
Yep.
Okay. I think that's it for this week. We covered a couple topics. going to get back to it. We're going to go find some problems we can go bang our head against the wall on and see if we can get stronger and more resilient figuring them out. So thanks, everyone. For more tips on operating and investing in real estate, please check us out at greenleafmanagement.com or find us on YouTube and Spotify.